I wasn't supposed to be inside the Charleston Grand that night. Not with my thrift store heels wobbling on imported marble. Not with a borrowed black dress that fit like a secret I was trying to hide. The chandeliers dripped gold light onto people who looked like they'd been born knowing which fork to use. Every table glittered with champagne and money. I didn't belong here. But I didn't have a choice either. My brother's medical bills were stacked higher than my rent. My scholarship for architecture school was hanging by a thread, and the only internship that could change everything, the one rumored to come with a grant and housing stipend, was being auctioned off tonight. The gala was called Rebuild Hope. The irony wasn't lost on me. Somewhere in this room, among the diamond necklaces and custom tuxedos, was the man who could give me that chance, Ethan Ward. The name carried weight in Charleston, maybe the whole South. 45 years old, real estate magnate, developer of half the skyline. He was the kind of man people whispered about in elevators and quoted in business magazines. A man used to commanding the room, and I was about to crash his party. I hovered at the entrance, clutching a tiny clutch that wasn't mine, watching servers glide past with trays of crystal flutes. The usher at the door was scanning tickets, sleek digital passes glowing green on every phone. I didn't have one. "Miss, may I see your invitation?" he asked. I smiled tightly, pretending to check my bag. "Of course, just 1 second." Then I did something completely out of character. I stepped sideways, timed the movement with the arrival of a new guest, and slipped in. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might echo off the marble. But no one stopped me. Not yet. Inside, violins played something expensive and elegant. The air smelled like roses and power. I scanned the room until I saw him, standing near the stage, surrounded by men in suits and women in gowns that probably cost more than my car. Ethan Ward. Even from across the room, he radiated composure. Tall, broad-shouldered, his gray suit tailored like it was cut just for him. His hair, salt and steel, caught the light. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes, sharp, steady, dark as storm glass. I'd never believed people could have presence until I saw him, and then he saw me. His gaze caught mine, narrowed slightly, assessing. He didn't look away. The air in my lungs turned to static. I tore my eyes away and started moving toward him, rehearsing the words I'd practiced 100 times in the mirror. "You don't know me, but I have a proposal that could change lives. I just need 5 minutes of your time. I never got that far." A hand landed on my arm. "Miss, you're not supposed to be here," the usher. My throat went dry. "Please, Before I could finish, a deeper voice cut through the music. "Let her go." The usher froze. Everyone turned toward the man who had spoken. Ethan Ward. He was watching me with that same unreadable look, hands in his pockets, head tilted slightly, the kind of calm authority that made people obey before they even thought about it. The usher stammered. "Mr. Ward, she's not—" "I can see that," Ethan said coolly. "I'll handle it." The usher released me, stepping back as Ethan crossed the floor. The crowd parted without a word. Every step he took toward me made the room feel smaller, quieter, charged. Up close, he was even more intimidating. 6 feet of control in motion. His tie a perfect Windsor knot, his cufflinks catching the chandelier's light. "Who sent you?" he asked. His tone wasn't angry. It was worse. It was calm. Controlled. "No one," I said quickly. "I just needed to talk to you." "You crashed a charity gala to talk to me?" My voice wavered, but I forced myself to hold his gaze. "Yes," he arched one brow. "That's a bold strategy." I didn't have another choice. Something flickered behind his eyes. "And what exactly do you need to say?" "I'm an architecture student. You're auctioning an internship tonight. One that could lead to a scholarship. I can't afford to apply through official channels, and I couldn't get a ticket to the gala. But I have designs I think you'd want to see." He studied me silently, his eyes scanning my face, my trembling hands, my scuffed heels. Every second stretched thin. "You realize," he said finally, "this isn't how business works." I swallowed hard. "It's how desperation works." That got him. A tiny shift in his posture, barely visible, but I saw it. He exhaled slowly. Security will escort you out. I felt the sting before the words were even finished. Please, I whispered. Just 5 minutes. He didn't answer. I turned, humiliation burning hot behind my eyes, ready to flee before the guards arrived. But then I heard his voice again, quieter this time. Wait, I stopped. Ethan was watching me, his expression unreadable. You said you have designs? I nodded, unsure if I should hope. He gestured toward a side door. Come with me. The room buzzed with whispers, as I followed him through glass doors onto a terrace overlooking the Charleston harbor. The air was cooler here, scented with salt and jasmine. He leaned on the railing, the city lights glowing across the water. Talk. So I did. I told him about my brother Tyler and his illness, about my mother working double shifts, about my dream of designing affordable, sustainable housing, about how his company, the Ward Group, built luxury towers while I wanted to build homes for the ones left behind. I told him everything I'd been too scared to say to anyone. When I finally stopped, I realized I'd been holding my breath. Ethan looked out at the harbor for a long moment, the silence stretching between us. Then he turned back to me. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. Maybe both, I said softly. The corner of his mouth almost curved. Not quite a smile, but close. You do realize crashing my gala could have gotten you arrested. I nodded. It was worth the risk. He studied me, long and hard, as if searching for something buried beneath the fear and audacity. Then, without warning, he extended his hand. Bring your portfolio to my office tomorrow, he said. 10 sharp, I blinked. You're serious? Completely. His hand stayed there, waiting. I hesitated only a second before I took it. His grip was steady, warm, unshakable. I don't reward recklessness, he said quietly, but I do recognize potential when I see it. I nodded, hardly able to speak. Thank you, Mr. Ward. Don't thank me yet. His gaze held mine. Prove me right. I turned to go, my chest tight with disbelief, when a sudden flash of light caught us both. A photographer near the doorway. Camera raised. Ethan cursed under his breath. Too late. The photographer disappeared back into the gala, the image already captured. A powerful man and a girl in a borrowed dress, his hand around hers beneath the city lights. I didn't know it then, but that picture would change everything. By sunrise, it was everywhere. Front pages, gossip blogs, social media. Headline: The Billionaire's Mystery Date at Rebuild Hope Gala. And just like that, my 5-minute plea for help became a scandal. But what I remembered most from that night wasn't the flash of the camera. It was the feeling of his hand in mine, steady, deliberate, and the quiet certainty that I had just stepped into a world that would never let me leave unchanged. By the time I reached Ethan Ward's office the next morning, my picture had already gone viral. Every Charleston gossip page had its own version of the story. Mystery woman steals the show at Ward's gala. Real estate magnate seen with unidentified brunette. Some comments called me his secret date. Others called me worse. When the elevator doors opened on the top floor of Ward Real Estate Group, I was shaking, but not from fear. From humiliation. Ethan's assistant, a perfectly polished woman named Grace, gave me a look that could have frozen glass. Mr. Ward is expecting you, she said. Try not to make more headlines. The sting hit deep. I followed her into a conference room lined with glass. Sunlight bounced off the harbor beyond, throwing gold across the floor. Ethan stood by the window, sleeves rolled, a phone pressed to his ear. Even irritated, he looked composed, like nothing ever rattled him. Yes, he said curtly. I'm handling it. No, there's no relationship. She's a student. He caught sight of me and ended the call. I'll call you back. He turned slowly, expression unreadable. You've made quite an entrance into Charleston society. I didn't ask for that, I said quietly. Neither did I. He motioned toward a chair. Sit, I obeyed, feeling like a defendant on trial. He walked behind his desk, every movement controlled. "Do you have your portfolio?" I slid the folder across the desk. "Yes, sir." He flipped it open, scanning sketches of community housing models, open-air markets, green roofs. For a long minute, he said nothing. Then, without looking up, he said, "You're talented." Raw, but with real vision. A flicker of relief warmed my chest. "Thank you. You'll start tomorrow. 2-week trial under my supervision." My heart almost tripped. "You're serious?" "I'm not in the habit of wasting time." I smiled, the first real one in days. "Thank you, Mr. Ward." He glanced up, eyes narrowing slightly. "Let's be clear, Miss Hayes. You'll be evaluated by your work, not by rumors." "I understand." He nodded once. "Good. You can go." I left the building half floating, half frozen, not knowing whether I'd just been rescued or sentenced to 2 weeks of emotional torture. By the second day, I learned that Ethan Ward was as intimidating in person as he was in every headline. He demanded precision, on measurements, budgets, even the way I labeled drawings. If a line was off by a millimeter, he noticed, but he also noticed the things I didn't expect. When my hands trembled holding the drafting pen, he quietly slid a cup of coffee toward me. When I stayed late, he brought extra takeout. He never said much, but I started to understand that his silence wasn't arrogance. It was armor. Sometimes I caught him watching me, eyes shadowed as if remembering something or someone he'd lost. On Friday afternoon, I stayed after everyone left to finish a model design. I was so deep in work that I didn't hear him come in until his voice broke the quiet. "You don't stop, do you?" I turned, startled. He was leaning against the door frame, jacket off, sleeves rolled, looking more human than I'd ever seen him. "Stopping's a luxury," I said. He studied me, amusement flickering faintly in his eyes. I used to think that too. What changed? His gaze drifted toward the window. My wife. My breath caught. "I didn't know." "She passed," he said simply. 3 years ago. Cancer. "I'm so sorry." He nodded, eyes distant. "Don't be. She'd have liked you. She admired people who didn't know when to quit." The words settled warm and sad between us. For a moment, we just stood there, 2 people from different worlds, bound by the quiet understanding of loss. Then he cleared his throat, retreating behind professionalism again. "Go home, Miss Hayes. You'll burn out before the weekend." I smiled faintly. "Yes, sir." But when he left, I couldn't stop thinking about the softness in his voice when he'd said she'd have liked you. By Monday, the city was whispering again. Someone had leaked a new photo, Ethan leaning over my desk, our heads close together, both smiling. It looked more intimate than it was. When I walked into the office, Grace handed me a newspaper like it was a weapon. "Congratulations," she said dryly. "You've become a headline again." My stomach turned. The article was titled, "Ethan Ward's New Protégé," or something more. When Ethan arrived an hour later, the temperature in the office seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Miss Hayes," he said, his tone clipped. In my office, the door closed behind us. He tossed the newspaper onto the desk between us. "Care to explain this?" I shook my head. I didn't say anything. "I swear, someone did," he said sharply. "And now half the city thinks I hired you because—" He stopped himself, jaw tightening. "Because of that photo?" I said, voice rising. "You were helping me with a model." He exhaled hard, pacing a few steps. "You don't understand how this world works, Avery." I flinched. "Then teach me." "Don't assume the worst." His eyes flicked up, storm dark and conflicted. "This isn't about you." "Yes, it is." My voice cracked. "I didn't ask to be in your papers. I didn't ask for this attention. You're the one they care about, not me." He stopped pacing, watching me with an unreadable expression. For a moment, I thought I saw regret. Then it was gone. "I can't afford another scandal," he said quietly. "You'll finish your current project. Then the internship ends." The words hit like a physical blow. "You're firing me?" "I'm protecting you." I shook my head, feeling tears burn behind my eyes. "No, you're protecting yourself." He didn't deny it. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the distant hum of the harbor through the glass. Finally, he said, "You've got talent, Avery, but you need to learn when to walk away." I swallowed hard. "And what about you, Mr. Ward? When do you stop walking away from people?" The question hung in the air like a dare. He looked at me, really looked, and for one heartbeat, I saw everything he was trying to hide. The loneliness, the grief, the fear of losing control. Then he straightened his shoulders, mask firmly back in place. "Good night, Miss Hayes." I wanted to scream, to fight, to make him understand that this, whatever this was between us, wasn't a mistake. But instead, I gathered my things and walked out. The elevator doors closed with a soft hiss, sealing him away like a secret I was never meant to touch. For the next week, I tried to pretend it didn't hurt. I buried myself in job applications, unpaid internships, anything to keep from thinking about the way his eyes had looked in that last moment. Cold, but full of something that wasn't indifference. One afternoon, while I packed my drafting tools into a box, Grace appeared at my apartment door. She didn't look pleased to be there. "Mr. Ward asked me to deliver this," she said, handing over a sealed envelope. Inside was a check, more than enough to cover my tuition for the next semester, and a single handwritten note. "For your brother's treatment." No strings attached. My breath hitched. I turned the paper over, half expecting another message. There wasn't one. Just his neat, measured signature, E. Ward. I should have felt grateful. Instead, I felt like crying, because for all his power, for all his control, Ethan Ward was a man who helped people only from a distance, never close enough to risk being hurt again, and I was the girl who'd come too close. The weeks after Ethan ended my internship felt like falling in slow motion. Every morning I woke expecting an email, a call, something. But there was nothing. The check he'd sent sat unopened on my desk for days. Eventually I deposited it only because I had to. It paid my brother's medical bill, bought time for another semester, but it didn't ease the ache that came with his name on the corner of that paper. The city kept whispering. People moved on to new scandals, but every time I passed one of his buildings, the glass towers glinting like mirrors, I saw pieces of him everywhere, and of me, still trying to pretend I didn't care. Then one morning, a black car stopped outside my apartment. A driver stepped out, polished and formal. "Miss Hayes?" I blinked. "Yes?" He handed me an envelope. Inside, one line in Ethan's sharp handwriting. "You designed something worth building. Come see it." My chest tightened. Before I could ask questions, the driver said, "Mr. Ward requested I bring you." I hesitated only a moment before sliding into the car. The ride was silent, Charleston's sunlight flashing off the water as we crossed the bridge toward the northern docks. The air smelled of salt and wood, alive with cranes and hammers. When the car stopped, I stepped out and froze. Before me rose a half-built structure, steel frames stretching toward the sky, scaffolding buzzing with workers. I knew it instantly. The open arches, the community courtyard, the rooftop garden. It was my design. The one I'd presented during the internship. The one he'd told me was good, but not feasible. Now it was real. Ethan stood near the site office, sleeves rolled, sunlight glinting off his watch. He looked up as I approached. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. "You built it," I finally said, breathless. His gaze held mine. "We built it," I shook my head, dazed. "Why?" "After everything." "Because I should have believed you," he said quietly. "Because I was wrong." He took a slow step closer. "I told myself ending your internship would protect you. The truth is, it was just easier than facing what I felt." My heart hammered. "What did you feel?" He didn't look away. Alive, for the first time in 3 years. The wind lifted strands of my hair. I couldn't speak. He continued, voice low but steady. "After my wife died, I built walls higher than any tower in this city. I told myself it was control, but it was fear. He exhaled. "You broke through that. You made me see what I was missing." "I didn't mean to," I whispered. "I know," he said. "That's what made it impossible to ignore." We stood there in the bright Charleston sun, surrounded by the hum of workers and the sound of metal and wind. "I thought you hated me," I said softly. "I hated what you made me feel," he admitted, "because it meant I'd have to start again." "And you did," I said, nodding toward the building. His lips curved slightly. "No, we did. This project, your design, will be the first mixed-income community space in this district. The city council approved it last week." I blinked, barely processing. "You made it happen?" "I fought for it," he said simply. "You inspired it." The words hit deep. For a moment, neither of us moved. The sunlight, the dust, the steady rhythm of construction, it all blurred into something quiet and surreal. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a rolled blueprint. "There's still something missing," he said. He unrolled it on a nearby table. The design plans for the community garden I'd sketched months ago. "I want you to oversee this," he said. "The rest of the design team agrees. You'll get full credit." My throat tightened. "You're offering me the job back?" He shook his head slowly. "No, I'm offering you a partnership." I just stared at him, lost for words. "I don't want to build another structure without your name beside mine," he said softly. Professionally, or otherwise, the world seemed to still. He stepped closer, close enough for me to see the faint lines at the corners of his eyes, the silver in his hair, the exhaustion he carried like a badge. "I spent too long protecting my reputation," he said. "But that night at the gala, you weren't the mistake. You were the moment I started to care again." My breath caught. "Ethan!" His voice dropped, quiet but certain. "I'm sorry, Avery, for the way I doubted you. For thinking fear was strength." I could barely speak. "And what if I say it's too late?" He smiled faintly, sadness lacing the curve of his mouth. "Then I'll keep building until it isn't." That broke something inside me, the last bit of resistance I'd been clinging to. I took a step forward, then another, until I was close enough to see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. "You called security on me the first time we met," I whispered. "And you still didn't run," he said. "No," I said, smiling through tears. "I guess I don't stop easily." He reached for my hand, the same way he had that first night. His touch was warm, grounding, and this time there were no cameras, no audience, just us. "Good," he said softly. "Because I'm done running too." When he kissed me, it wasn't desperate or rushed. It was slow, deliberate, like he'd waited years to exhale. The noise of the sight faded, replaced by the sound of my heartbeat, the faint rush of the harbor beyond. And when he finally pulled back, he kept his forehead against mine. "You changed everything," he murmured. "So did you," I said. 2 months later, the community center opened. Children ran through the courtyard I'd designed. The walls were painted soft gold and white, his idea to reflect sunlight year-round. The rooftop garden bloomed with green vines and flowers. My brother stood beside me, healthy and grinning, snapping photos on his phone. I spotted Ethan across the crowd, hands in his pockets, speaking with city officials, every bit the powerful magnate the world knew him to be. But when his eyes found mine, the mask fell away. He smiled, just for me. When he walked over, the crowd seemed to part naturally, the same way they had the night we met. Only now, he wasn't the unreachable man on a pedestal. He was the man who'd chosen to rebuild his life beside me. "You did it," I said softly. "We did it," he corrected. He reached for my hand again. Always the same gesture. "Steady and sure. Ready to start the next one?" he asked. "The next building?" He shook his head slightly, his smile deepening. "The next chapter." I laughed quietly, blinking back tears. "Only if we keep building together." "Always," he said. As the sun dropped low over the harbor, golden light flooded the courtyard. I looked around at what we'd built. Steel and glass, yes, but more than that, trust and second chances. Ethan squeezed my hand. "Funny how it started," he said. "At a gala I wasn't supposed to be at." "At a moment I wasn't ready for," he said softly. But sometimes the best things crash right into your life when you least expect them. He wasn't wrong, because love didn't arrive quietly for us. It came like that night, bold and inconvenient, impossible to ignore. And standing there, surrounded by laughter and sunlight, I finally understood what he'd meant when he said I'd broken through his walls. I hadn't just crashed his gala, I'd rebuilt his heart. And this time, he wasn't letting go. If this story made you believe in second chances, subscribe, comment your favorite moment, and share it with someone who loves emotional, slow burn romance where trust is rebuilt, not rushed.